Ooh, wee! Race was definitely exhausting, first of all. I think this is probably the peak of the golden age of Atlanta, unless if my pessimism towards how SMI is gonna reconfigure Atlanta becomes a whack. Knowing myself, my negativity will probably come to fruition, given the fact that not even Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson approve of what SMI is doing to completely poison the charm of Atlanta Motor Speedway, which is a shame because that's like my second favorite track. Kurt Busch, even with this shitty low horsepower package, always found a way to get around Kyle Busch, even if Kyle Busch was the one performing all the uppercuts. Thankfully, it was the older brother that kicked his little pansy ass. He pretty much completely scorched the shit out of him, much like 2019 Kentucky. Thank you, Kurt. You really, really saved us from absolute agony on that one. You remembered what to do. You remembered how to completely annihilate your little whiny little pansy of a younger brother. Good job. Good job, Kurt. Thank you. Thank you for that win, Kurt. I always knew at some point that you were going to win again because it was always a random part of the year that you would win. Just whatever race. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be an intermediate. Could be a plate race. Well, not plate race, but super speedway race. Could be a short track. Could just be whatever it is, whatever the hell it is that you have a great car on. And in this case, it was Atlanta, and you were able to outrun your younger brother Kyle Busch, with also the help of your teammate Ross Chastain. Honestly, I don't like the fact that NASCAR lets stuff like teammates being a roadblock towards the opponents of their teammates go unchecked, but considering it's Kyle Busch that always gets away with ridiculous offenses in NASCAR, I don't mind that at all. Ever. So, for that, good for you, Kyle Busch. There was also Alex Bowman, who was being a threat for the lead, but unfortunately, loose wheels because, well, we always have to deal with loose lug nuts, and how all 5 on each wheel are apparently not on tight enough to the point where it just completely ruins his run. Completely slows him down, potentially gets him in the probability of getting him disqualified, yada yada yada, but luckily he dodged a bullet on that deal. This, even for a low horsepower package, was a pretty good Atlanta race. This will probably be the last legitimate race for Atlanta, even for a shit package. And a lot of people are saying, oh, look at Atlanta, but now you're defending it. Listen here. Obviously, lots of people love to straw man my perspectives all the time, but let me clue you in on something. It's not the resurfacing that I am against, it's the reconfiguration. Narrowing it for the sake of, I don't know what the fuck you're narrowing the capacity of the racetrack for, but it's certainly not going to be beneficial for the drivers, and it's certainly not going to create a lot of passing unless you see a lot of big ones commencing almost every 10 or so laps, and it's just going to make racing outright mediocre. And if people actually think we're going to be fine on this, why don't you take a good look at what SMI has done to Kentucky, Bristol, and Texas, and see the consequences that happened after it. narrower racing lines in Kentucky. Kentucky's gone. Completely chalked off the schedule. Bristol gets the same reconfiguration nonsense. Very poorly done, might I add. Now it gets dirt overlaid on top of the asphalt for its spring race. Texas gets the same piss-poor treatment for turns 1 and 2, thus causing a lot of catastrophes in said corners. Texas loses its spring race. Hell, it has become even insufferable for IndyCar to race there. Not even the majority of a lot of good competitors in IndyCar survive Texas. Like, did you see, like, the first race where, I don't remember who it was, James Hinchcliffe completely obliterated the outside wall because of how absurdly narrow that garbage turns 1 and 2 are. It's awful. And you people wonder why legends like Matt Kenseth, Jimmy Johnson, and Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards retired. And I know a lot of people are going to give the same old repetitive, rebuttaled excuse. The same old frail excuse. No, well, those people were just husbands. Carl Edwards may have up and retired early after his choke in 2015, but no, they were just husbands. Guys, I'm tired of you idiots making that dog shit excuse. Jimmy Johnson had absolutely enough of NASCAR ruining the stock cars, so he decided to go to a sport with quote-unquote too much horsepower, whether he was a has-been or never was. Jimmy Johnson, if he was passionate about NASCAR and actually was able to suffer anything about his sluggish performances, would have stayed if there was the 2016 package. I'm tired of you idiots desperately trying to damage control the inadequacy of NASCAR and SMIs, completely poisoning their tracks. The fact that Kentucky's no more, Texas lost its first race, and that Bristol has overlaid a dirt on their spring race should be alarming enough to you, but no, you continue to use damage control. Jimmy Johnson, regardless whether he was mediocre or super great like his heyday, would have stayed if NASCAR at least had a slither of common sense. Stop desperately trying to damage control the inadequacy of NASCAR and SMI. Stop trying to sugarcoat this mess. And the fact that NASCAR is disregarding the safety features of Gen 7 doesn't help either. Also, Matt Kenseth was only a quote-unquote has-been because no one would give him a fucking job. And even if they did, that was only because Trevor Bayne was a never-was bust. Or that Kyle Larson completely made a fatal mistake just because he didn't think anyone was hearing him when he said that racial slur. And of course, how can you really even say that Tony Stewart was a has-been when he, for starters, won a race in his own racing series, which in and of itself should explain why he's not failing at life. He has his own racing series. The point being is, those legends that I just spoke of would have fucking stayed if NASCAR at least didn't try to mimic every move NFL was doing. They would have stayed regardless of their performance. Why do you think Jimmy Johnson's staying in IndyCar regardless of his less than subpar performance? Because he enjoys racing on IndyCar, you know, kind of like I enjoyed racing on my friend Chandler Carroll's iRacing simulator. Whether I was winning races or sucking terribly on those races against the AI, I still enjoyed it. That's the same arrangement with Jimmie Johnson. Whether or not he is good or atrocious in IndyCar, he enjoys racing there. He did not enjoy the state of NASCAR at all, because they turn it into sports entertainment, almost WWE on wheels. I try not to call it WWE on wheels, but because of how far up both Steves have their head up their ass to the point where not even Blue's Clues could help them, it's not a surprise that big names like Kenseth, Stewart, Carl Edwards, and Jimmie Johnson left. Stop trying to sugarcoat this bullshit. Be the voice of reason before it's too late. Because sooner or later, one of my favorite tracks of all time, Atlanta, is going to be no more. How much do you want to bet they probably want to go back to the same exact track layout that it was in the 90s? You know that track layout where it used to look like Homestead, Miami, where the back straightaway of today was actually the front straightaway of the 20th century? How much do you want to bet they probably want to go back to that if SMI's reconfiguration of Atlanta completely flops as expected on basically any track that they lay their disgusting, filthy hands on? Don't come crying at me when the racing sucks next year, even if the Gen 7 happens to run a package at 800 horsepower. Because I hate it when people say I told you so, but if it sucks, I told you so. I really do hope I'm wrong, but because of the toxic history that SMI has of squandering beloved tracks, not that Kentucky was all that great to begin with for Cup Series anyway, but my point still stands. Don't be surprised if our initial pessimistic word turned out right, because we want to be wrong, but apparently because of how absolutely inept SMI really is at maintaining track conditions, maintaining track configurations, it's likely that we're going to be the ones right. Don't be surprised that this is basically the peak of the golden age of Atlanta, because I really hope my buddy Alex Hoover enjoyed it while it lasted, because, well, it's likely we're probably never going to get good or anything remotely solid racing at Atlanta ever again. Hopefully I am wrong. Probably won't be wrong. But if I am, to hell with SMI. And I do not want anyone to make any dogshit excuses for NASCAR's absolute atrocities and basically anything charming that they're outright mutilating in cold blood. The fact that people are still not realizing this is mind-blowing. Like, how many more tracks does SMI need to completely decimate in order for you to wake up? Do I have to keep repeating myself in order to stress enough for you inept idiots to at least have some sort of compromising perspective? Do I? Because every time that you try to sugarcoat this absolute mess that SMI is inflicting upon the beloved tracks, we turn out right. So yeah, this was a good race, probably the last ever solid race at Atlanta, but hopefully I am wrong about what SMI is going to do to Atlanta. We didn't say that repaving is a bad thing. Don't get the wrong idea on that one. Repave is what's desired. Based off of the broken surface at the front straightaway that I think Ryan Blaney got a piece of under the green flag runs, resurfacing is what's called for. NASCAR or SMI is doing the right call by resurfacing Atlanta. Resurfacing is the safe call. Reconfiguring is a completely different story. Reconfiguring, resurfacing, they're not the same thing. Resurfacing is when you overlay new, fresh asphalt above the aging surface that it currently has. It's just so race cars can race on a fresh surface in fresh condition where there won't be much damage on the road that would otherwise damage their race cars. Reconfiguring is when you either narrow or widen the tracks or just make it an outright different racetrack, like how Auto Club, a D-shaped 2-mile track, is being reconfigured into a short track. Changing the degrees and bankings, changing the amount of room that's on the track, changing the miles on the track, whatever the fuck, that's reconfiguring. Adding fresh asphalt on top of the aging asphalt is resurfacing. Those two are not the same thing. We are good with resurfacing, but the uncalled for reconfiguration needs to be reconsidered before it's too late. Before we have a lot of messes that we could have averted. That's all I got on this matter for now. Hope you guys have a great night, great summer, great 2021. Spacing out.